Welcome to EVONA Origin Stories, the space podcast where we look to bring you extraordinary leaders from within the sector and their fascinating stories of early life, career, and how they broke into the space industry.
Today's guest is Allan Cannon. He is the CEO of R3 IoT, a very nice, very interesting guy, based up in Scotland, studied at university in Bristol. We've actually set up our companies pretty much at the same time. We've always had a bit of banter, exchanging ideas, even thought about flying some tequila into space. But he's a serious guy. They've got a very, very cool business. They're well funded, and his story is very relatable and one that we're looking forward to sharing. So Allan, thank you very much for taking the time out for this podcast. We've known each other for a number of years, which I guess we can come to, but I've been very keen to speak to you on this podcast because I consider you to be somebody that's very relatable for me personally, and I would imagine for a lot of younger people potentially looking to enter the business world. Whenever I've met you, you've been super personable. So really, really, really keen to hear your story. So thank you very much for taking the time out.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks very much for having me on. I think it is, yeah, we've known each other for a little while now, and I started the business around about the same time as you started your business, so we've gone on a bit of a growth journey together over the last few years. So great to be on your podcast today to talk about these things and hopefully give some advice to the next generation of space entrepreneurs.
Absolutely, yeah. This is all about telling people stories to try to inspire, really. My career's advice at school was fairly limited, and I've always been passionate that a lot of people are lost in their careers because they don't actually know what people do in their jobs, but also they see this kind of wall, A, of being able to enter the space industry, and B, of being able to enter into the normal world of business. And actually, if we can tell people stories, hopefully we can bring that down to earth a little bit. So where did it sort of all start for you then? Were you born in Scotland, or can you paint the picture for me of the early days?
Born and bred in Scotland, Central Belt in Scotland, so quite near Glasgow. Grew up, had a younger brother, played lots of sports. When we were younger, we played tennis and rugby. So that was a lot of my childhood was going to tennis matches or going to rugby matches and building friendship groups around those kind of sports. So that was a big part of my childhood, and I went to school, primary school, and formed some very strong relationships with some friends that I'm still friends with today. And I guess kind of that period of my life was quite interesting in that I was starting on the journey without potentially realizing it, that's taken me towards today. And my approach back then was just have fun, really, and not take myself too seriously, not take my studies too seriously at the time, until really I got into probably till when I got to university, that was the start, really.
How did you when you made that transition out of school and into university? Are you one of those people that sort of knew what you wanted to do at university, or did you kind of fall into the
Absolutely not. It was university for me was a chance to go in and meet lots of really interesting people with the same sort of interest. So I think my choice of university actually was really dictated by something that I enjoyed. So I was very good at sciences when I was at school, and didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school. So I picked the best grade that I had, which was physics at the time, and I decided I would go and try and study physics. I was very interested in how things work, and interested in how we can make things better. And I think that part of me led me to apply for physics here in Glasgow at University of Strathclyde, and then that kind of theme persisted through university as well, and got to the end of my studies in university, having passed university, got through university, and my physics professor, said to me, I was trying to work out exactly what I wanted to do, and I didn't have a clue really at that point. I was, didn't really want to go into the world of work, but I was going to look for a job, etc. But professor said to me, Alan, we've got this new master's course in RF science and engineering. Would you like to do it? And I said to him, I'm not really sure. I'll have a think about it. And then he said, it's fully funded, so you get a bursary for it. So that was my mind made up. I said, I'll go do a master's, and I'll take it from there. And that really led me into the kind of world of RF and into the aerospace industry. And yeah, that's where it all kind of began. But again, that's like, I did it out of enjoyment. I didn't make up my mind early on. I guess that's the main kind of theme through that period. It was just do something I enjoy and go from there.
Yeah, it's really good advice. I never really knew what I wanted to do with mine. I went to university. I loved music. I was in a band, and I loved business. So I put the two together and did a load of courses on that. Turned out one of my courses was actually on disco. So it probably wasn't as structured as yours, but I just feel like you sort of find yourself when you are at university. So when you when you were at university, did you always sort of knew that you might set up your own business one day, or were you very much in the world of, you've done your masters, now let's find a sort of program to go into?
No, I didn't know I would find myself in business, and it was really interesting because I actually reflected on a period of my school career when I was at school, and it was in fifth year at at school, and I got selected to be part of the Young Enterprise business team, which allowed you to develop a product and learn a little bit about a business. And that was actually a really great distraction from my actual schoolwork. So I got really heavily involved in that, to the detriment of my grades, probably. And I think looking back, that was probably the first sign that I enjoyed getting into business. I enjoyed the concept of making something and selling it. And I didn't really realize that until later on in my career, when I look back and go, that might have been the first sign. So when I was at university, I think as many kids of that age are taught, as you go from school and you try and go to university and you try and get a good degree, and then you go into the world of work. So I think that was kind of drilled in from a society perspective, is that's what you do. So that's what I was trying to do, and I didn't put too much thought into the design of it and why I was doing it at that point in time.
I completely agree with you. It was sort of the done thing, wasn't it? It was part of the culture, was you won't be able to get a job unless you have a degree. Things have definitely changed now, but yeah, I definitely went through the same thing. So you completed the masters. And then what sort of happened from there? What was like your first sort of main job?
Yeah, I didn't put too much thought into it. Again, I think it was I saw a really cool graduate degree working for an aerospace company, so taking graduates and running kind of graduate scheme, and it was in Bristol, your hometown, Tom. And I decided to apply for it, not really knowing much about Bristol, not really knowing much about the company that I'd applied for, actually, and I was accepted, and that was the start of my aerospace degree. And it was really quite nice, because I worked with that company, ended up working at that company for 11 years, and learned everything from working with advanced technology, applying my physics from my university, and leading projects and all sorts. So that was actually turned out to be a really good decision, because it gave me a lot of the skills and experiences that finally led on to later on, and being able to start a business. So,
how did you find the job? Just out of interest, was it just like a search online, or were there any links with the university? Or
yeah, I think we did some searching through the careers service at the university. A lot of just searching myself. At that point, LinkedIn wasn't available, so you couldn't just go into LinkedIn and do your searches, and certainly didn't have the experience or the knowledge to utilize those types of tools. So yeah, it was literally just using the graduate careers tools that were available at the time. I can't remember the names of them, but there were a few, and there was one particular that just kept popping up, and I thought this sounds really interesting. Lots of cool R&D technology, lots of interesting solutions, and so yeah, that was really the start.
nice. So, how long were you there for, and then what was kind of the next step for you from a career perspective?
Yeah, so I was there for 11 years. I went through the graduate scheme, which gave me experience of working with some senior execs within the team. I got involved in business development. I got involved in early stage trials of technology in far off places over in the US, and various other places, and started to get involved in leading early stage projects, early stage technology, taking it from kind of concept through to early stage prototypes, and then demonstrating those with potential customers. So that was a really interesting period, and I ended up staying there for 11 years, and by the end of that 11 years, I basically started doing more on the kind of business and stakeholder management side of running projects, and running quite large multi-million-pound projects at that point in time. And that I really started to understand where my strengths were, and started realizing that at that point it was like really working with people and managing people, and helping get the most out of people. I managed to do some graduate mentorship and undergraduate placements and things like that, and I started to get you get a lot of satisfaction by seeing somebody go through their career in those early stages. So that was kind of there. So I was there for 11 years, and then from a family perspective, we decided that time to move back to Glasgow. I was away from my family for 11 years, and wanted to move back. I'm very close to my brother, so I decided that it was probably time to move back and be close to them as we both started family. So they took the decision to move back. And actually, a bit of a funny story around that is both myself and my wife, we sold our house, bought a house, and quit our jobs before we had jobs up in Scotland. So we put a bit of pressure on ourselves to come back to Scotland and find jobs, and luckily I landed on my feet and got a very good job with Clyde Space in the space industry, and yeah, the rest is history on that one.
Were you aware of the space industry before you got that job? I mean, I'd assume so. If you were looking at aerospace, but were you aware of kind of the commercial new space? Because obviously, with Clyde, they were fairly early in, I think, with the concept. So yeah, were you aware of it sort of in depth, or did it just happen?
I didn't realize how big it was and how much activity was going on across not only Scotland and the UK, but worldwide, and what this kind of new generation of space companies that were utilizing some really interesting new technology. So I was aware of Clyde Space. They were getting a lot of good press at the time, and I thought that if I move into any other company, I want to try and move to somewhere that's doing some exciting technology, working in an exciting area, and I felt that was going to be a good matched to my skills and my ambitions, to kind of stay within technology, but also be involved in a growing business as well.
Yeah, nice. What did your family say when you said that you were going to go work in the space industry?
Yeah, I guess it was interesting because I've always been involved. I've always been interested in space. I think from an early stage of my life, I'd have space Lego, and I want to be an astronaut, and and I guess being able to work in an exciting, just being able to say you've put stuff on orbit. I mean, that's just the coolest thing ever. It's like, so I think when I told my mum and dad and my family that I'm going to work in the space industry, they kind of maybe didn't really believe what I was saying, but I was like, yeah, okay, Alan, yeah, you're going to work in the space industry. That's fantastic. And then they started to realize, oh, there's a space industry in Scotland. Oh, fantastic. And you're actually putting things, up into space and or in orbit. So that was fascinating for them, and I guess it took them on a really interesting journey as well. And they became really interested in learning about what I was doing, and it's an exciting industry, and there's so much happening in it. So there's so much to talk about, and I think it's over the last decade, it's completely transformed, and people are starting to realize that there's so much activity in various different areas of space. Is so exciting. So yeah, that was a quite a nice period to start to educate people about what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that initial reaction is always like, right, okay, then. And then actually when you start to uncover it and you really start to think about it, so many companies are theoretically space companies. And the growth's exponential, isn't it? And that, again, that's part of this. We are going to run out of people. So we need to bring that wall down of people thinking that it's just astronauts, because it's absolutely not. It's cool companies, often with an amazing culture. I'm not sure why, pretty much unanimously across the space industry, the culture is amazing. I just wonder whether, because a lot of what people are doing is either putting things in space or they're taking information from space, it makes you quite humble, makes you realize kind of how small Earth is. But yeah, that's always a huge part of it for us. So you're at Clyde Space, and then so let's talk about where the idea for the startup really came.
Yeah, that's so I was 2.5 years at Clyde Space, and Clyde Space were acquired and merged with AEC Microtech from they were listed on the Nasdaq North. So I kind of realized that it was maybe time to scratch the itch, and because I had become aware in very short space of time of all the opportunities in the space industry, there was a lot of investor money going into various different startups across the world. I was exposed. The role I had was head of missions, so I was not only responsible for the technical side of missions capability within the business. So that was designing the spacecraft, and the team that looked after that, the mission design analysis, and then the operations side of the business, once the satellites are on orbit. So I not only got involved in managing that side, I got involved in business development stage as well, which was working closely with the business development team, with potential and current clients who would come in with their requirements of what they wanted. And it was clear at that early stage that you started to appreciate how startups work in the space industry, and especially if you're putting satellites onto orbit. So I got the chance to work with some fantastic early stage startups, Kepler, for example, we worked very closely with Kepler when they put their first satellite on orbit, and I'm still friends with a lot of the guys in Kepler to this day. So that was an exciting time of certainly of my career. But you became very aware of the fact that startups they come up with an idea, they go out and they try and validate that idea with a set of experts, find some funding, and if you're putting up a satellite, you put up one satellite and you prove out the technology, and then you go to investors and you get some more money. So it was quite an interesting. I started to see that and thinking, this is something that potentially I could do, and certainly something that interests me. But I didn't really know exactly where I would start the business, but I knew I wanted to do something. So yeah, and then started to become very aware of IoT and using satellites to move IoT data, and was very aware that there's a lot of companies putting up new IoT constellations, and I felt that there was this is when started working with Kevin Quilly, my co-founder, CTO, started realizing that there was a huge gap in the value chain, which was focusing on the ground technology and the cloud infrastructure that allows organizations to easily leverage space assets, space communication assets, to deploy very resilient IoT and digital solutions, and that's really where we decided to focus. And the more we talked to partners in the European Space Agency and UK Space Agency, and likes of Scottish Enterprise and some of the economic support organisations in and around the UK, we started to realise this was a really good opportunity, and that we had to give it a go, which was very scary, but we did it.
Yeah. It is scary starting, but when you look back, often it's the best decision ever made, really. So can you kind of can you paint a picture of when the business was kind of incorporated in its first days? Like, did you guys have an office, or were you just at home? Like, had you already ironed out what roles you were going to do, or could you sort of paint the picture of the very start?
Yeah, those early days were so scrappy. It was really let's develop the idea, see if we can break the idea. We spent the first 3 or 4 months trying to break the idea. We wanted to be certain that this was something that had legs and could go somewhere. So yeah, those early stages, no office, working out of coffee shops in and around Glasgow, trying to understand where the support would come from, so financing, where we would get the advice from, what was the ecosystem, startup entrepreneurial ecosystem like in Scotland. So that was a really interesting time, and we gave ourselves 6 months. We managed to scrape together some funding, and we gave ourselves 6 months to see if we could break the idea, and if we didn't break the idea, then we would have a go at it. So yeah, nervous times, but also very exciting times, because we were at that very early stage where the ideas were coming. We were working through them, we were validating assumptions, lots to talk about. But yeah, just the two of us working from cafes and then trying to make ends meet. So going out and doing a little bit of consultancy here and there, utilizing the skills that we had, developed over the years. So that was something that we were, able to do, and we did that whilst working on the idea.
So you guys were fully self-funded right at the start. Then there was sort of no external funding in the early days.
For the first 9 months, we funded it ourselves. We were able to scrape together that funding, and then we were able to we got onto what was called the High Growth Ventures portfolio with Scottish Enterprise. So that allowed us to work up an early stage feasibility grant for the business, and that allowed us to take on our first team member and start developing the technology. So we didn't actually start developing technology for about 12 months. It was all we knew what we needed to do on the tech side of things. That was our comfort zone, essentially. We understood that well. The bit that we didn't understand was the business side and how to build a business and how to understand the market and how to go to customers and really get under the skin of customers' pains and challenges, etc. So those were all the things that we were really focusing on validating in those early stages, and just trying to understand how to get to the next stage, because at that point in time we weren't looking 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line. We were really just looking like, how do we get to the next 3 months here? What's the next step? And just by working through it kind of in that fashion, has got us to where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your first hire like then? So because obviously when it's your business, I guess it's a bit like having kids. Suddenly you are actually fully responsible for somebody. So was it somebody that you already knew, or was it like a fresh hire?
It was a fresh hire, yeah, and it was a great hire in the end. And we were looking for another engineer to come in and help us, an embedded engineer. So yeah, that was a really interesting time, because we recognized that the individual that came in and worked for us was taking risk coming to us. So a lot of the conversation was around, trying to show that particular individual that the business was real and that we had an opportunity. So there was a lot of selling from our side on what that looked like and the opportunity and what that meant. So we definitely needed somebody that could work on the tech and work through that. But yeah, we were literally trying to find another founder at the time. So it was quite interesting, and it's hard. We'd built teams in the past, so we weren't that uncomfortable with building out teams. But yeah, getting that first person in the door was interesting.
Yeah, it's different though, isn't it? When it's your business, and as you expand, you just feel so responsible for people.
That became, absolutely. That becomes the biggest, I think, the biggest stress factor as you start your business, because you've not got a lot of cash. You're working month to month on your business, so I think that's the big thing that you really worry about as a founder, is like, how do we make sure that this person that we've now employed doesn't not get paid? We want to make sure you get paid, no matter what here, because you've got your bills to pay, and and we want to make sure that works for you. So yeah, I had quite a few sleepless nights certainly in the early stages. Like most founders will have, it's all about cash, and it's all about how do you get the next step. So
yeah, absolutely. So what year was this then? So what year were you 3 people?
So we founded the company June 2018. So 3 people, 2019.
Okay. And then what was kind of the turning point, I guess, in expansion? Was it you guys feeling like you knew what you were doing? Was it the verification of the tech, or I guess they're both the same thing? Or was it, having hiring plans laid out? What was the point where things really started to increase?
So actually for us, the point where things started to increase was the start of the pandemic. We kept things really lean at the start. We kept things really focused on building out the tech and making sure that the tech was going in the right direction, and that takes time, Tom. It's not, and it's expensive to build out tech. So we made sure that we were, working with partners as much as possible as well. So rather than necessarily build a lot of capability at those early stages before we'd proven the concept, we did a lot of working with suppliers and partners. So we worked with one of the innovation centres here in Glasgow, Census, who are an IoT innovation centre. So that was a really good early stage partnership that helped us, get access to good engineers who could bring a prototype to without a lot of expense for us. I think it was that trade-off between time. It takes a long time to get an individual into a business, and then six or so months to get somebody up to speed, and then but we wanted to move relatively quickly, so that was the way that we managed those early stages. So early stage of the pandemic, we were only at 5 people, and we just appointed our sixth hire, and pandemic hit, and we went into panic mode, like most founders. Like, how are we going to survive? What do we need in the business? And probably the most stressful time in my life was that early stage, those first kind of 6 weeks, and trying to understand what the don't know how many cash flow scenarios we ran through, but it was it was an interesting time. But then we became aware of all the opportunities that would come from that, and interest in digital technologies, interest in what we were doing, and we really took that opportunity to expand the number of markets and customers that we were speaking to, and off the back of that, we're able to bring in brought in some good funding from the European Space Agency, and then a few other sources, which allowed us to continue to grow, which was really good.
Yeah, I guess the the funding point is obviously a major point in kind of hardware tech type organizations. You guys, I guess, especially being on the software side, the opportunity is exponential, because it's kind of endless when you're looking at selling software solutions. So what, in terms of that funding, what was kind of the main sell? And because there'll be so many people out there that are thinking about setting up their own business, and they've probably got an idea, but it's that funding part that is like, right, where the hell do I start with that? And and I know that there's significant amounts of funding available for good ideas, but lots of people don't know that. So could you talk through the process of that, and what was it like? Did you speak to hundreds of people and you actually loads of presentations, or because that's what I think in my mind when I think of funding. It's like the founder having to fly all over the world and speak to thousands of investors until you find the right one. Was that what was that process like?
Well, at that point, I mean, I kept a lot of my focus on UK. I hadn't quite started to think about kind of US and further afield. There's quite a healthy funding ecosystem for startups in Scotland and in the UK.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of access to R&D grants. Innovate UK is very good. Scottish Enterprise is very good. There's lots of good various different funding available specifically to very early stage companies. So although there's a lot of risk there, that's a really good way to get to fund them. Some of them have like really quite challenging applications, etc. But that's what we do. So we had to go out and learn all this, and luckily we had some good advisors and they could point us in the right direction. But those early stages are you've got to understand where to fund. I mean, we have a hardware enabled software company. The hardware bit is the bit that's the really, really difficult bit. It's the get that right first, and then everything else will come from it. So, and that takes time. Product development, hardware product development is not easy, and but once you've got that technology and you've got it in a form that's scalable, everything else will come from that. So yeah, so we've built out that with support from the European Space Agency, support from Census Scottish Enterprise, various other funding bodies. So it's you need to know where to look, but there's lots of money out there for those types of early stage businesses.
Yeah. I mean, you are right on the hardware side. It's just from like a recruiting standpoint, it's hardware. So I'm talking about hardware design, embedded software. That those skills are in such high demand. But from a university standpoint, from a kind of early stage standpoint, the number of people that are doing those courses is definitely on the decline. And we're trying to work out a way to get the message out there. It's like, if you want to work in an industry that's booming and you want to be in an area where there's not enough candidates, therefore the salaries may well be higher, embedded software is definitely up there. It's just interesting, isn't it? That there's such an increase in demand, but it's almost like younger people aren't aware that that's what's required. Really interesting.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, there are some roles, and you've mentioned one of the key ones there, embedded software. It's like anything. I mean, we use IoT technology, so sensors, and having software and hardware skills, the ability to connect with a sensor and write the firmware code, and the making sure that different devices can talk to each other. That's gold at the moment. There's so much going on in the IoT space, and then you link that with satellite and data analytics. It's actually, for us, we need a lot of different skills within our business to make the whole system work. So it's that's been a big challenge, and yeah, you're right. There's some of these are very hard to recruit for.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. All hardware is likely to be alive soon. The chair that I'm sat on will soon probably be. We'll probably have some software in it of some description. So
yeah.
And you can't do that with that embedded software. So probably a subject for another day, because that is definitely an issue that needs to be tackled. So let's sort of fast forward then to the here and now. So you guys are obviously doing very, very well. You can see that from the press releases, from all the growth. So I'd be really interested just to touch on what the culture is that you guys are trying to create, because obviously, with the aim here of trying to get people of all ages to either set their own business and enter the space industry, just feel inspired to really sort of make that leap, whether that's an exec or whether it's a student. I think understanding companies' cultures is really, really, really useful. At least businesses that are doing very well, like, what are you doing? What's it like to work there? So could you paint a picture of how you would describe your culture?
Absolutely. First of all, our business will only be as successful as our people, and that that's flipping things on its head a little bit, and so we put a lot of trust in our people. We give people a lot of responsibility. We have a very, very people-friendly benefits package to support individuals, but the type of people we bring into our business are people that can come in and grow with the business, and can take advantage of the opportunities that come with being in a startup. So we make sure that our people are very well looked after, but at the same time expect a lot from them, because we're in a the business is changing month to month, and sometimes that can be quite difficult. So we're looking for individuals that can come into the business and thrive within that environment. We do a lot of social stuff as well, and help make sure that, you know, if people are working hard, they're being rewarded as well. So yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on our people, and I think you'll you know, if you came along to see our offices and come and spend time with the team, you'll realize the type of people that we have within the business. You know, they're quite inspirational, and actually, as a founder, to sit back in a meeting and hear, you know, ideas being bounced off each other, you know, a safe space for people to agree to disagree, but, you know, we're all doing it for the right purpose. We want the business to be successful. And I think the other thing as well is that the technology and the application of the technology has so much potential for impact. You know, whether that's you know, from a helping companies, you know, reduce their carbon, just giving people access to data from remote and rural areas. And our team have all bought into this, and they can see the opportunity as well. So that's quite exciting to see. And you know, we have a mission to digitize the world and to help, you know, or organizations from around the world that work in rural and challenging environments, to make it really easy for them to manage their assets, and then all the extra benefits that come with digitization. So it's quite an exciting place to be at the moment, and long may that continue.
Sounds like you've got nailed there, a collective sort of mission, and then you've hired in people that have an opinion, and you give them the trust to have an opinion, and really nice people. That's obviously really, really, really important.
Of course, yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in some teams and cultures that has, you know, for whatever reason has not worked very well. And trust in your people and giving people the opportunity to get their feelings, provide them with a safe space that they can you know, fail and make mistakes, is really important for us. And you know, as a business, we're seeing the benefits of creating that sort of culture and that sort of environment, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to be the same ourselves. You know, I've just looked out of where I'm sat, and somebody just walked past with a huge sack full of items for us to kind of put forward to Ukraine.
Yeah, great.
And it's just giving people within work that opportunity to feel a part of something and to feel like they're making a difference. You know, that's pretty much what it's all about, really. So just to wrap up then, so quite an interesting question, quite a hard one to answer, really, but what would you say is the best and worst advice that you've received? Probably keep it to business. Yeah, what would you say?
I had a really good mentor when I was at the first big aerospace company that I joined, and what he said to me was, try and reflect on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly basis. Look back and learn from, you know, your various different experiences. And he taught me how to journal and how to start to think about, you know, what went well, what didn't go so well. And that stayed with me all the way through. So learning, becoming very self-aware of what you're good at and what you're not good at as well, because, you know, then you can start to understand which areas you can work on. So that, for me, that's probably something that was one of the best pieces of advice I've had, like, from a career perspective. Worst pieces of advice? Oh, I don't know about that one. That's an interesting one.
Just move on to that. So
Yeah.
Could you break that down for us? Because I think that's a very, very, very good piece of advice. Certainly something that I've learned only really, really, really recently. So are you referring to actually, like, writing down what you learned that day, each week, each month? Like, are we talking about that, or like, how do you actually do that?
It doesn't actually need to be written down. That's the key thing. It's just having some time, either at the end of your day, end of your week, you know, end of the month, and just really thinking about the things that the things that you tried to do and what went well, what didn't go so well, and just being conscious of those things and spending some time thinking about, what could I have done to make that better? What's the thing that I can improve on, and then consciously, going after those things and starting to address some of the things that you might want to improve upon. I think that's a big a big focus, and something that lots of people can learn about.
I mean, that certainly hit a bit of a chord with me. That it's not something that I do. I can sometimes go days, weeks without really stopping to think, and then it builds up, doesn't it? And then you're about so okay, cool, thank you for that. And then in terms of the worst advice, then
worst advice,
it's a tough one, isn't it?
I don't know if I can answer this one. I've been
there's a lot of advisors out there who think they know what you should do, but I think and some people have given us or tried to give us advice, and we've said, that sounds really good, and then we've had somebody else say that's complete rubbish. And I don't think I could pin it on one particular piece of advice. I think that when you're starting a business, it's your business, and you know what's best for your business, and no other person has all the information that you have about your business. So it's good to seek out lots of different advice about your business. At the end of the day, it's up to the founder and it's up to whoever started a business to make the decision. And the best thing to do, I think, is to try and make more good decisions than bad decisions, and then learn from all the bad decisions and try and improve upon yourself. So that's maybe as kind of, there's lots of bad advice out there. You have to try and see through that.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess you need to go with your gut. At the end of the day, you know more. You have that gut feeling. Too much, I guess. Just like you say. Cool. Well, look, thank you very much for that. Lots and lots and lots of pieces there to touch on from an advice perspective. We've touched on things like networking and making sure that when you meet with people, you do stay in touch, all the way through to having a good idea and just making sure that you test it, you stress test it again to the point where you're happy to move forward with it, all the way through to building up a business and making sure that the people are put first, because ultimately, if you don't put your people first, then you won't have a business. So that advice and lots more. So thank you very much for taking the time out for that. Really, really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it, and pleasure as always. All right.
Absolutely. All right. Take care. Cheers.
Cheers, Tom. Bye.